the most desired woman in the world, was once a child nobody wanted. Let that land for a moment. The woman who stopped traffic, who made presidents forget their names, who became the single most recognizable face of the 20th century. She was unwanted, not as a metaphor, not as poetry, as a fact. Her name wasn't Marilyn. It was Norma Jeane, Norma Jeane Mortensen. Born June 1st, 1926 in Los Angeles, California, a city that would one day put her face on everything and could not at first be bothered to give her a home. Her mother, Gladys Baker, worked as a film cutter at RKO Studios. She sat in dark editing rooms all day, cutting and splicing other people's stories together. She was quiet, fragile, a woman already cracking at the edges long before her daughter was born. Gladys couldn't do it, couldn't hold a job and a baby and herself all at once. So she made a choice. Norma Jeane was 2 weeks old. Her mother gave her away. The foster family were good people by the measures of the time. Religious, strict. They gave her a bed, 3 meals, a roof over her head. But love, warmth, the feeling that someone had chosen her, specifically her, and would not let go, that was not on the table. From the very beginning, Norma Jeane grew up understanding something that no child should ever have to understand. She was temporary. She was a guest. In every home, in every room, in every life she entered. Nobody was keeping her. She was 7 years old when her mother came back. For a moment, a beautiful, fragile, heartbreaking moment, it looked like everything was going to change. A real mother, a real home, someone who belonged to her and to whom she belonged. She let herself hope. Children always do. That hope lasted less than a year. Gladys Baker's mind began to fracture. It happened slowly at first, strange moods, long silences, moments of confusion that didn't quite make sense. Then faster. Then all at once. She was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. Doctors came. Quiet conversations were had in rooms Norma Jeane wasn't allowed to enter. And then her mother was taken away. Not dead. Not gone in the way you could point to and grieve cleanly. Just gone. Behind doors, behind walls. Somewhere Norma Jeane couldn't follow. She was 7 years old, standing in a doorway, watching the adults move around her like she wasn't there. And then she was placed in the Los Angeles Orphans' Home Society. She refused to accept it. For days, maybe weeks, she told anyone who would listen, "I'm not an orphan. I have a mother." She said it to the staff. She said it to the other children. She said it quietly to herself in the dark, like a prayer. Like if she said it enough times, it might become more true than what was actually happening. Nobody listened. Nobody came. But here is the detail that will never leave you. From the orphanage yard, the small, dusty yard where the children played, you could see a window. Her mother's window. Same city. Same sky. Same Los Angeles that would one day plaster her face on every billboard and marquee. Close enough to see it. Too far to reach it. She would stand in that yard and look at that window and feel something that a 7-year-old doesn't have words for yet. Something that sits below language. Below thought. The specific, devastating feeling of being almost loved. Some wounds don't come from what happened. They come from who never came back. The years that followed were not kind. Foster home after foster home. Some were cold, some were indifferent. At least one was something worse, something she could never fully speak about in public, only whisper to the people closest to her, late at night when her guard was finally down. She was abused as a child. She carried that in silence for most of her life. She developed a stutter, severe enough that some people assumed she wasn't intelligent. severe enough that she would spend years learning to work around it, shaping it, eventually with extraordinary skill turning it into something that sounded like invitation. She grew quiet, watchful. She learned to read a room the way you learn to read weather when you live somewhere dangerous. Quickly, carefully, with your whole body. But underneath all of that, something was burning. A hunger so fierce, so deep, so relentless that it had no name yet. It was looking for one. She found it in the dark. The movie theater was her church, her sanctuary, her only real escape. She would sit alone, always alone, and watch the women on screen. Actresses, luminous, adored, untouchable. The camera followed them everywhere. The audience leaned forward for them. The whole world, it seemed, was holding its breath for them. She watched and she felt something catch in her chest. Not jealousy, not admiration, something more desperate than either. That, she thought, whatever that is, I need that. Not for glamour, not for money, not for fame in the way ambitious people want fame. For something much more fundamental. To be seen, to be chosen, to have someone, anyone, look directly at her and decide, yes, her. I want her to stay. By the time she was 15, the system had run out of options. Her guardian, Grace Goddard, was relocating to another state and couldn't take her along. The alternative was going back to the orphanage, back to the yard with the window she couldn't reach. Unless... There was a boy next door, James Dougherty, 20 years old, steady, quiet, available. A marriage was arranged, not out of love, not out of romance, out of pure logistics, the kind of cold arithmetic that adults apply to children's lives when they've decided the children don't really have preferences worth consulting. She was 16 years old when she walked down the aisle. She later said she didn't fully understand what she was agreeing to. She just knew what she was escaping. And escape, by then, was the only thing she knew how to want. The marriage was ordinary, quiet, not cruel. James was not a cruel man, but hollow in the way that things are hollow when neither person chose the other freely. When the war came, James shipped out. Norma Jeane went to work. She took a job at a munitions factory and Burbank Radio Plane Company, assembling parts for military drones, 12 hours a day in the heat and noise and chemical smell of wartime production. She was one of hundreds of women doing the same work, anonymous, interchangeable. Another set of hands in the machinery. Then, one afternoon in 1945, a photographer named David Conover walked through the factory doors. He was on assignment from the Army, looking for images of women on the home front, wholesome, hard-working, the kind of pictures that would boost morale for soldiers overseas. He was looking for something ordinary. He found something else entirely. He saw her on the assembly line. Later, he would struggle to explain what it was. It wasn't just that she was beautiful. There were beautiful women all over that factory. It was something else. Something about the way the light hit her. Something about the way she moved, even in that setting, even in those clothes, with her hair pinned up under a factory cap. She had presence. The kind that can't be taught or manufactured. The camera didn't just like her, it needed her. He photographed her that afternoon, then came back and photographed her again, then again. Norma Jeane had never stood in front of a professional camera before. No training, no experience. No one in her life had ever suggested she was destined for anything beyond what she already had. But in front of that lens, something happened. The stutter disappeared. The watchfulness disappeared. The invisible girl, the one who had spent her entire life being handed from home to home, told in 1,000 silent ways that she wasn't quite enough to keep that girl stepped aside, and in her place stood someone else, someone electric, someone magnetic, someone who looked directly into the camera like she had been waiting for it her whole life. Because she had. Modeling contracts followed, then a meeting with Ben Lyon at 20th Century Fox, then a screen test. She dyed her hair, changed her name, studied voice, studied movement, worked harder than anyone gave her credit for, because that is what people who have spent their whole lives being underestimated learn to do. They work in the dark, quietly, ferociously, and they do not stop. Norma Jeane Mortensen began to disappear, and in her place, slowly, deliberately, one careful choice at a time, Marilyn Monroe was born. The world took one look at her and lost its mind. Men crossed oceans. Careers were derailed. Marriages cracked. Actual presidents, took risks that no rational person would take just to be near her. The whole world wanted Marilyn Monroe, and she had needed this for as long as she could remember. But here is what no one tells you. Here is what the posters don't show, and the films don't capture, and the fame could never fix. Even at the absolute height of it, even when her face was on every magazine in America, every screen, every billboard, every conversation, she was still there. That girl, in the orphanage yard, looking up at her mother's window, waiting, still waiting. No amount of flashbulbs could reach her. No amount of applause could answer her. No man, not DiMaggio, not Miller, not Kennedy could give her the one thing she had been asking for since she was 2 weeks old. The simple, devastating, ordinary thing. To be chosen, to be kept. To have someone look at her, not the icon, not the fantasy, not the blonde in the dress, but her, Norma Jeane, the quiet girl with the stutter and the wound she never stopped carrying, and say, "I'm not going anywhere." Nobody ever said it. Not the way she needed. Not for long enough. The world called her Marilyn Monroe. But inside, she was still the girl no one chose. If you felt something just now, if this stayed with you, subscribe. Because next week, we go somewhere even darker. The Kennedy secret. What really happened between Marilyn Monroe and the most powerful man in the world. Some things were never supposed to come out. We're bringing them out.